There are two kinds of presentations in the world. There are the ones that people endure and the ones that people remember. And usually the difference isn't talent, it's not expensive software, it's not a design degree. It's knowing what buttons to push, what features to use, and more importantly, which ones to ignore. Good evening. I'm CJ Covell. This is a special episode of Office Hours Global focused entirely on Keynote. We're talking power user techniques, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by Lindsay from Novato, California, John Snyder from Reno, Nevada, Jason Beisch from Albuquerque, New Mexico, all passionate Keynote users who've spent years refining their craft. Cindy Drozd is here, who's going to be bringing your questions to us as we go throughout the show. And tonight, we're really exploring the practical features that are hiding in plain sight. They're the same techniques that are used by organizations that deliver some of the best presentations in the world, but it's not gimmicks. It's not effects that look cool but fall apart under pressure. We're talking about real practical workflow improvements that you can use with the software that comes with your Mac. And I'm so incredibly excited. John, why don't you kick us off? Tell us a little bit about your history with Keynote and how you got the power user moniker among the group here.
Sure. My background actually comes from education. I've spent basically my entire life educating others in some way, whether it was in a nonprofit, teaching church members in a worship setting, or now I teach I'm the leader of our training department in my current organization. So I've run the gamut from substitute teaching all the way through corporate education. And really what I find is to be an effective communicator, you need to make sure your audience is listening. And PowerPoint or Keynote is either of those are tools that you can use to be super effective in how you communicate.
Jason, you're also another power user among us. Thank you for joining us tonight. What's your history? How long have you been working with Keynote and really
My
stretching
pleasure.
it
I would say maybe 15 years, and I never liked PowerPoint, but I just figured it was something that I had to endure. But the minute I got my first Mac, I was enamored by two things. It was Keynote and it was the preview app, because it was the first time that I could just modify PDFs, and it was just completely magic, and it would show me anything, and I had quick view, and that just kind of filtered into Keynote as this kind of all-in-one, whatever I can do, whatever I can think, it's probably going to, behave the way that I expect it to. So yeah, it's been about 15 years.
I'm going to just don you the Keynote wizard. Some of the coolest keynotes that I've seen have been ones that have been put together by this gentleman, Lindsay. Good evening.
Hey.
So now you've been working on presentations. All of us have been working on presentations a lot longer than Keynote, but you have exemplified probably more than a lot of people out there really how far you can push it and how creative you can get with your uses of the program. What's your history with Keynote?
I mean, it's what I've used for presentations. I think I used PowerPoint in 2000. I think that was the last time I really used it for a show. I mean, the only time I use PowerPoint at this point is to convert it to Keynote. For a long time, there was a window between about 2008 and 2020, well, 2018 or so, where for about 10 years, anytime we said we were going to conform and it was not just me, like every event person that I knew, if we said we're conforming your PowerPoint for the presentation for the event, it meant that we were taking your PowerPoint and converting it to Keynote. Like that, that's how we were going to fix. That's how we're going to fix it. And a lot of it had to do with like the way that PowerPoint managed things and little things like the anti-aliasing, kerning. There's a whole bunch of things that Keynote did better than everything else, as well as just being able to do output. And so I've used it for a lot of things, for both big presentations as well as, and again, pretty much all the money I've raised, in the last 20 years or 25 years has all been started with a deck, so it's definitely something I spend a lot of time in.
And I've been playing around with Keynote ever since it moved on from being the kind of the skunkworks pet project inside Apple to help them give their Keynote presentations. Notably, it was Steve's presentation app. And I've always been amazed at how the friction between an idea happening in my head and my ability to have that translate on screen without really any knowledge of before when I started using Keynote, no knowledge of animation, no knowledge of how somebody would do it anyway else, but I just found that I was able to make the ideas become reality, and it was really incredible. Now we've got a couple of different things that I know some of us have brought to share, and we do already have some questions coming in, so we're going to get to those just as quickly as we can. But I want to start off with some of our favorite power user, or maybe not so obvious tips and tricks on how we structure those presentations, and how we make the keynotes really go from mediocre to just incredible.
I can start, and I guess we can start with shapes. It really just kind of gets set on fire when you have a whole bunch of royalty and license-free SVG files that can just be poured over. And that's what the Noun project lets you do for, I want to say it's $65 a year. Whatever they charge, it's not enough, because it really makes all the difference. When an SVG comes in, it comes in as a series of layers. And this can work, but it's not nearly as cool as the actual shapes that you have that are in Keynote. So, the shapes that show up are dynamic. They can be drop shadowed, they can be gradiented, they can be dynamically moved. The arrows can be tracked on them. You can add things to shapes, but the trick is that you first have to break them. So if you go here and go to break apart, and I'm going to show this as a group. So this is actually a series of inline groups of shapes that are nested within each other. Once you have them as a single part, if you select them, you now have each one of those little parts. Format, shapes and lines, and unite shapes. Boop, it looks exactly the way that it did. And now you can add and save to my shapes, and you'd better call it something immediately, because if you don't, you will lose it forever.
And one tip that Alex gave me a while ago was to take the map that's built into Keynote, the map of the United States, for example, and if you're not in a place that shows Alaska and Hawaii, for example, you can use the trick that Jason just did. Right-click on the map of the entire United States, and then say break apart, and then after you break it apart, all of those individual shape layers are editable, and then you can delete whatever states you want. In this case, I deleted Alaska and Hawaii just because I don't participate in those markets, and so they're usually not something. So if I wanted to take off, I don't do business in the West, so I'm going to delete the West, and now I have this version of the United States that I can right-click and then hit save to my shapes, and then say this is my specific market area. And then of all of the shapes that are up here in Keynote, they're all, anything that's an SVG, you can go ahead and move those things together. That's really cool.
Can I add a little hot sauce to that recommendation?
Please.
You can also, when you have a shape, you can use the merge tools in Keynote, and you can actually subtract one shape from another. So if you take these fancy icons, you can actually create a solid flat background on, or make a rectangle the size of your canvas, and then put your shape on top of it and subtract your shape out from the rectangle. And then you have a rectangle with a hole in it, exactly the shape you want, which means for animations, you can slide up underneath that hole a rectangle of another color to make the animation look like it's filling up your shape to a certain amount. That's one trick that I use often.
Absolutely. And, to that end, once you have shapes, once these things are actually in as shapes, it's amazing how much life you can add to them with just simple gradients. And it's also just amazing to me how elaborate they can get. This is, I don't even want to know how many shapes stacked on top of each other. I've also used this for, for different plug connectors, for Thunderbolt, for C9, C8, USB, DisplayPort, you get the idea. All the way up to pretty elaborate and intricate things. All the way down to office furniture. So it really, really is incredibly dynamic.
So this is the beginning of a presentation that I give, and just to give you a sense of layout. This is not so much tips and tricks, and it's a little bit, but it's mostly the way I think about presentations. So if you look at this here, I don't want to show you anything that I don't want you to read right then. So you'll notice that if I'm going to start doing stuff, each one of these is a keystroke, or I'll set it up in timing, but I don't want to, I'm not going to show you that whole slide at one time. It drives me crazy when It's one of my pet peeves when someone gives me a slide with a whole bunch of stuff in it. And then, so you kind of fly through here. And now this is an example of, if you look at these three things. So this is noun project, noun project. This was actually ChatGPT. Said, I want this logo. It's never exactly the same, but I wanted something human centric, and I blah blah blah, and it built something. I had to go and build an out. So what I did here is I actually built that into an outline. I made some adjustments to it, built it into an outline, then saved that out as an SVG, then brought it in, turned it into a shape. so I have it, so that's another way to kind of look at it there. Here's just some fades, and then here you can see again, these are all, I'm pretty sure all of these are noun. No, they're all noun project. Those, to give you a sense of how often, but this is about as complicated as my, all of these are about as complicated as my slide deck gets. so like when I sometimes will have a couple more words, but it's usually pretty close to this. It leaves it open again, because whether you're using, if you're using an iPad, you can do this without a Wacom tablet. I have a Wacom tablet with obviously with broadboard on it that I draw over top of things. So I draw over top of my presentations all the time, but I want my core information to appear. So if you think about it another way, one of the things that I'm always amazed at is that people aren't using 3D models. Like, I think that every company that builds a product, they put out all these images, that press images and so on and so forth, when they could be putting out 3D models of their objects. Now, maybe if they're worried about like the Chinese making a duplicate of what they're doing, I mean, they can do that pretty quickly on their own. like you're not protecting anything by not producing a model, especially for the shell on the outside. So if you look at this one here, this here, you'll see, and that just looks like an image that's slid in. That's all fine and dandy. But what's different here is and I can, now that this is an image, and this is like just a little infographic saying, the 64 millimeters for the interaxial, but that turn there is not rendered. So that's not a video of this model. This is a 3D model inside of Keynote. And so now I can still add my 2D things that I want to add on top of it. I can swing it up and show you the bottom. Now, it may not look as smooth on in Zoom, but it is a smooth move. Here, I want to also thank Nick Justishin for doing the texturing on this. I had this modeled, and then Nick went in and made it look good. But you can see how with all of these things here, I can simply, add the 2D stuff that I would normally add on top of that model to talk about it. But I can simply move it around. And this is what I don't have to do, is open up Blender or Cinema 4D or any other 3D thing to show my object. So if you have a product that you want to show off, if you have if you have something you want to build training on, I'm just kind of amazed that we haven't seen more people do it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at kind of at 0, just to kind of give you a sense of how this works. So this is that model again. And once I click on it here, it'll take just a second for it, because this is a really heavy model. It's probably the heaviest USDZ model I've ever used. So it's takes a second for it to come up to speed. Now you'll see this little rotational piece here. I can just grab onto this object now and move it around to where I want to, position it. So if I start now, I'll hit reset rotation in here. Now I can also, for instance, hold this down and rotate it around its axes. Something that's a little bit more precise, and it's a little easier to get to exactly where you want to go, by doing it a little bit more specifically. But what I do is simply I'll cut and paste, and I'll create a second slide. And in that second slide, I'm gonna select this again, and I am going to just gonna take a second for it to load up again, and then I'm gonna turn it like this. We'll just turn it to the side like this. And I can see that, there's a little bit of x-axis. I'm just going to fix that and get that to 0. So now I have it kind of turned to the side here. Now all I have to do is go to the first one, and I'm going to say I want to animate the slide, and I want to do a magic move to the second one there. It's going to think about it for a second. And again, we are kind of pushing the envelope of what Keynote does with a model that's heavy, but I'll show you some ones that are a little bit lighter as well. But so anyway, so now if I hit play here, and what happens is that it loads it up. It's very performant once it has it all in line. And so now I hit that animation. So there's the animation that you have there. Those of us who've done 3D will tell you that doing that simple animation of rotating around a y-axis would be hours, like hours to render that out. And then if we didn't like it, we'd go back and start over again. And here you can instantly do it. And now that you've done that, you can add all the other graphics on top of that to make it work. And there's a lot of models out here, just like, this model is the camera, but, I went and grabbed some other models that were fun. So I went to, I think it was,
Beautiful Things at XYZ is a great repository of these.
yeah, and also like Sketchfab. Here's a cave troll that I got from Sketchfab that's all ready to be animated and everything else. Now this one's much more performant because it's a much lighter model. But what's interesting is that the downside is that these objects don't have any sense of each other. So there's no sense of global space. There's just local space. So you can move them around and animate them, but it's anyway. But it's still pretty cool that you can move it around. And again, if you think about taking basic objects, you want a phone, you want some kind of object, some kind of icon. The big advantage here is that you're not stuck with whatever the photograph was. You just have the model. And so we built a model for a company called Clarity. They just use it for all their marketing materials. So every time they want something, they open it up in preview, rotate it to where they want, export a TIFF. There it is. And so that's the kind of thing that can be done with it. So I talk about it fairly often, mostly because I'm just surprised that I don't see it very often, and I built this model because I planned to spend the spring doing tutorials on how to use the camera. Now I'm going to Apple, so I won't be able to do that. But it was still worthwhile as far as a thought experiment. So anyway, so that's there's the and CJ has that's the Clarity module, and I think you have so there you have it. And so you can see that, again, this is a product, and now you can talk about it. You can take those, build out the overviews, and I just feel like this is a really lost opportunity. Not just for, I think people think of Keynote as a presentation tool, but it's also a video production tool. All of these things can be saved out. You can save those all out with a certain timing. You can add voiceovers. You can do all of those things on top of that. And so for people who aren't ready to jump into Motion or movies or iMovie, or I don't know, is it called iMovie still? I can't remember. Final Cut, any of those apps, or Resolve or Premiere. If you're not ready for all of that and you just want to produce a quick video, you can actually do that quick video in Keynote, and with 3D and video and all these other things that are there. So anyway, hopefully that inspires some folks to think about that.
Yeah, and Magic Move was really it was almost like keyframing, where if an asset exists on two different slides and you use the Magic Move transition, it fades out everything that doesn't exist on both slides, makes the motion, and then fades everything else in as you like it. And when you combine even in 2D text, if you use it really thoughtfully, you can make Magic Move do some really amazing things. Like I had this one where I think it was 1 or 2 iPhone keynotes ago, I tried to, and I know that Apple is probably not using Keynote anymore. They're using probably some really high-end animation tools, but I'm like, what if I could?
Right.
What if I could try? And so I literally was like taking some of their feature quilt animations, and I would say, okay, if I have let's say I have a slide that has some text on it, and then I want to take that text and turn it into a feature quilt. I took the text feature quilt, I had it on 2 different slides. So you can see it's on slide 1, on slide 2. And then when I make that transition, the text gets smaller, goes to its position on the new slide, and then I have a really complex build order thing that goes and drops everything. And really that's where, if I go into the animate tab here on the left, and then I go into build order, you can see that this was a a very thoughtful and kind of tedious, where I took all of the rectangles that were on the perimeter and I had them fade in and move from the outside of the screen in, and anything that was in the interior came in with a pop. And then I was very thoughtful about every one of those is going to come in with the prior build on a 0.02 second delay. And then when you do that, that's what makes it go pop, 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 pop. And you can also do things like that. Like I have this one that was kind of a drift and scale, where I wanted all the text to come in kind of as a transition slide. Or this one has a build where I wanted the text to come in kind of one layer at a time as I was talking about it to build up to a final point. Or we have all these cool line draws. You can do, if you have a line that you've made, you can say line draw, set the duration and direction, include the endpoints. How long do you want it to come in? Do you want it to kind of have rubber banding, easing in and out at the edges? And then when you actually play that, it ends up being this cool boop. And what I do as my kind of power move here is I save all of these things once I've done this hard work of doing all the build order and setting all of this complex stuff, is I'll save these slides as a master template. I'll go into Keynote and save these as an overall kind of almost like the pantry, so that when I'm going to make the presentation, I've got a slide for my line draws, a slide for 3 or 4 different variations of a feature quilt, a slide for how I want to present facts and figures, and then I'll have another slide for common assets, kind of like a visual clipboard, any logos, any clip art that I like to use. So if I have a common clip art for a camera or a person or a stage, I can bring all those in and then get to work focusing on the content right away. And I have a couple of different kind of master Keynote templates if I'm doing something that's in a kind of in a corporate environment or something that's in a lighter or more fun environment. And I'll even do things like if I have some themes that I hit on every single presentation with my team, I make sure that those are formatted the same exact way every single time. Now, Jason, you've been having some fun with USDZ as well, isn't that right?
Yeah, and I'm not going to draw over top of this because you're going to see very quickly just how hard I'm going to push it. So this is, furniture and giant photogrammetry. The top piece there was Alex's Widowmaker, and this is the 8K rendering of it. This is a ginormous warehouse that I took on the very first iPad Pro that had LiDAR in it, and then these are floor plans of various offices. And with Magic Move, and I've been making changes all while everyone's been talking, but it will very quickly re-render. And you can even, for example, you can play around with animation, and that animation is extremely smooth, and the lighting is dynamic, and it really does hover. It's probably not looking great at the moment.
It looks awesome.
So let's play with that. Let's say we have, and pardon me, I don't really know anything about rotorcraft. So what we have here is rotor and tail rotor. I'm going to call it tail rotor because why not? Because the real point here is that as this moves, so too can that. And it will just do that.
Because you have the lines connected to a specific part in the model, the lines move as well, or are you having to move those lines manually?
Not always. I wish I could say always. But in this case, it is such an easy move that if you're going to make one of these skilled transitions, extending an arrow is a piece of cake. And I can take that a little bit further. Let's go back to the next. We're going to fly back to where it was. This is an example of dynamic lighting. This is incredibly elaborate, but the file itself is maybe 15 megabytes. It's a hot tub with dynamic lighting in it. I'm going to wind that back just so you can see the way that it changes over time, and then maybe pull in just a little bit more to show you just how detailed that is.
Now, all of this stuff is cool, but it's our restraint in using it that really makes it impactful. One of the other things that I value about Keynote are the tools that are built in to make sure that your slides are aesthetically pleasing. Make sure that your slides, the tools for spacing and alignment and distribution and the smart guides and things like that all do really well. And John, you had actually had a couple of things to show on how to use those alignment tools.
Yeah, and I just don't take anyone seriously if they can't line up their stuff correctly. So let me demonstrate real quick. when you have a lot of items on a slide, you can just use the guides to align them. Or you can use the built-in alignment tools by selecting 2 items, right-clicking, and then say align. In this case, I'm going to align my outside ones to the left. Their outermost left edges are now aligned. I'll do the same on my right objects. Oh, sorry, it's a little bit hard to get what I need here. Then, if I take my bottom row, I can grab all 4 of those, and I'll say I'm going to distribute those horizontally so they're evenly spaced out between the outermost right and leftmost edges. And then I want to line them up by their center, or by their middle, excuse me. Now they're all exactly aligned. I'll do the same with these objects here. Quick distribute horizontal. And last align middle. So now I have 2 rows of items that are exactly rectangular with each other. But what if I need to change the order of these? Here's where you can use some of those groups and ungroup tools. If you group all your objects together, then you can rotate them 180 degrees. That moves all the objects so they're all exactly the same spot as each other. And then I can ungroup those items. And then while I have them all selected still, I can rotate them 180 degrees again. Oops, sorry, I didn't.
Also, I noticed that you're using the pro tip of if you're using the rotate tool and you hold the shift key down, it will snap to.
Yeah, so I'm holding the command key to make it rotate when I grab the corner and shift to make it snap to where I want it. And this is just one way you can do it. It's a little bit faster in PowerPoint, but again, if I need to just move 2 objects to be exactly the same spot as each other, if you just group them, flip it and reverse it, they will be in exact alignment with each other.
Another thing, and I've actually used this recently. I was working on just an infographic, and I didn't have any. I was on a kind of a vanilla Mac. I didn't have any sort of graphics illustration software, no OmniGraffle, no Illustrator, no anything. So when I wanted to lay something out in a really easy way, I was able just to throw open Keynote, use the align, use the distribute spacing, make everything look all clean and nice. And then when I presented that to someone, because I used the tools that were just easily available to me to take a little bit of extra care to make sure that it looked important and felt important to them, then it hits you at a lower level, and it makes you feel like it's important, and it makes you take it more seriously. People might not be able to see it. People might not be able to articulate why it was more impactful. But ultimately, the important thing was that the message got across. Now, Alex, what are you working on there?
There's a question about keying stuff over it, and I was working.
Well, we do have some questions stacking up. So, Cindy, why don't we dig into those first questions, and we'll start to get through these.
Here's a question from Florence Donald in Silver Spring, Maryland. Alex has a way he creates icons in Keynote. Please go over that process.
I think Jason did a little bit of that already, but I'm going to show you one more time just to kind of make it clear, because I'll probably do it in a slightly different way. Let me pop up a slide here. So I'm gonna jump over to just here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab onto a I downloaded something from the Noun Project. This show is not sponsored by the Noun Project. I'd like to outline. We just
really like
fans.
them.
So anyway, we just use them a lot. So here's a camera icon, and just to kind of reiterate what Jason had shown there, I'll take this camera icon. I will go in here and say shapes and lines. I want to break it apart. Now, if I go up here and nothing's available, it means that they're grouped together. It doesn't always mean that they're grouped together, but that's what this means in this case. So I go to arrange and I'll go ungroup. And now I see them all in pieces. Now, what I will do here before I go any further is I'll go here and say unite shapes. And that just makes them all one object. And then I will, then I'll go in here and say save to my shapes. And I'll say second camera, because I already have one like this. Second camera. And now the big difference is, I mean, as Jason alluded to, is that when I pull them in, they're now part of a, when I pull this in, it's now an object that I can change its color just by tapping on these colors. This one, I can't do that. I have to, it's much more manual. And this one also has, again, I can do drop shadows, that type of thing, which I can do here too, but it treats it treats the object differently. in that process. And so this is, and again, you'll see that in shapes, there's lots of icons. These are all custom icons that I have built, logos and pieces of things and everything else. All of these are, the office hours logo. If I want to use the office hours logo, I have it as a shape, so I can just grab it and drag it in, and it's an infinite resolution. So that's how I do that.
Another thing that you can do with shapes that I think is really cool is anything that is a shape within Keynote, like I had in the feature quilt example, I had all of these rounded rectangles. All of these shapes are now actually drop zones for images. So in this upper left, you eagle-eyed viewers may have noticed that gray is darker, and that's because that is actually a mask that is over my desktop background that I took a screenshot of just to have something. And I can now scale and crop and move around any image that I want. So if I'm trying to make a feature quilt where a bunch of things are flying in, I can use it just like my normal crop and scale tools. But now when I hit enter, I have this really pretty, nice image mask. So the only thing that I don't like about this is once you drag and drop an image, it's a little tricky to change your mind and drag and drop another image. So I always have, if I have an elaborate bunch of masks that are spaced in a very specific way that I spend some time on, I first will save it as a master slide so that I can keep bringing in kind of a blank slate and blank copy if I want to do that. Let's move on to the next question.
Next up, we have John California in Heflin, Alabama, asking, would love to hear everyone's method for making overlays and animated lower thirds for use with OBS and the new RodeCaster video.
Yeah, so I think that I think that what you're looking for is to have some kind of way to key it over top of that and create those animations. And so go ahead, Jason.
John Barker has just completely nailed this. I'm trying to remember what it's called, but I think it's just the live video playout app that he has that will allow you to basically take anything that you need and set it, and it will just straight away work for this kind of live thing.
So that's H2R graphics coming in?
H2R graphics, thank you.
And that works great if you don't need to do a lot of edit, if you don't need to make it look a very specific way. So as soon as you go, I want to make it look specific, John's got a set of designs, and it is really but if you want to build something that's a little bit more detailed or have more control over it, then you usually have to get you need something a little bit more, and Keynote can do that.
John?
Yeah, and if you don't need it exactly production ready, you can just add your webcam as a camera inside the Keynote itself, make the camera full screen, and then build the objects on top of it and present through Keynote where it's showing your webcam.
Next question.
This one's from Simon Ray in Midlands, UK. How would you prepare an image for luma keying?
John?
What you want to do when you're luma keying is you're going to be keying off of either pure black or pure white. I typically do pure black. If there's objects in your picture that you want to keep that are pure black as is, select the picture in Keynote, and then underneath the format of the picture, you can choose the enhance button, or there's 3 bars underneath enhance. And when you toggle those advanced controls, you change the contrast by just about 1%, and that will make your blacks gray enough that they won't be keyed out.
And one of the cool things that you can do with Keynote when you're if you make something that is a transition, or you have a magic move, or you're having something that you're intending on luma keying later, you can actually export out of Keynote. I think is it a ProRes 444, like a full fat file?
Yeah,
Alex, am I getting that
absolutely.
right? And so you're exporting a full fat movie file out of there that then you can go ahead and do your luma keying on and make that really nice. So that actually kind of relates back to kind of an animation thing. If Keynote is an engine, so to speak, for if it's the layman's animation tool, you can use that to compose some pretty incredible animation without needing to be a 3D animator. Next question.
Jason Robert Shaw in Sarasota, Florida asks, when resizing USDZ objects from Sketchfab in Keynote, rotating causes parts to disappear as if the viewport is clipping instead of the camera reframing. Best practice for resizing USDZ objects without clipping.
What I would recommend is using reality converter, and then you can in there you can change the scale. So either reality converter or you can use Blender. The problem with taking it into Blender or any other real 3D, true 3D, is that it can change the shading. So if you want to keep everything the way it was, bringing it into reality converter should allow you to change that scale on the way through. It does. What that is that's a clipping. There's a clipping distance to the camera, and when you make something really big, and what's interesting is I haven't had that problem with the Sketchfab one specifically, but I haven't had it in other places. And typically, it's you do need to scale it either up or down to fit into that without having to to do that. And typically, I think it's scaling it down. I think it's too big. I think it's inside the clipping field. So, but cameras are designed to kind of clip when they get a little too close. So that's probably what's happening. But again, I would look at using reality converter for that.
The other thing that you can do with reality converter if you're working with USDZs is that if for some reason, if you've exported a USDZ out of whatever program you're using to generate it, and then you bring it into either Keynote, or I've even seen in preview where parts of the image will not render correctly, or parts that are missing, I'll find that if I take the USDZ file, open it up in Reality Converter, and then re-export it out of Reality Converter, that's a workaround that I've seen that will clean up some of those rendering artifacts, and then you don't get some of the weirdness. USDZ is a very new thing for it's in as many places as it's integrated, and so we are seeing a little bit of inconsistency across different applications, but I'm sure that's going to get better as more people start to see how gosh darn cool it is.
Part of why we're doing this is to make sure that all of you think about this. And one thing to note is that if things aren't working especially an Apple app, there's typically, I think in Keynote we have one. Let me jump over to that. If you're in Keynote here, you'll see a provide Keynote feedback. And that's important. so the provide feedback, the rumor is they read them all. So if people are saying, hey, this isn't working or this is broken or other things like that, it does make a difference. So it's worth definitely looking at. By the way, the other thing we were talking about with reality converter is typically where you're going to find that where you can change your scale is saying what the base units are. This should change how it's looked at here. As far as what those properties are as they come in. This is our little cave troll. Anyway, so there's by changing some of those, it'll change the scale as it comes in.
Jason?
Yeah, and just to give everyone an idea of the scale here, these files are incredibly small, even when they're really elaborate. More often than not, we can text these to each other through messages. They might be 75 megabytes. The largest one that I had in that spread was ever so slightly too big, but that's to give you a sense of how small these can be when you really do them right. They're pretty amazing.
Next question.
This one's from Tlaloc Lopez Waterman in Seattle, Washington. Is it possible to send Keynote and a USDZ into a switcher with a transparent background and have it floating in your video feed?
John?
Yeah, how I've solved this problem is create a full black presentation with your 3D object on it, and then use a luma key, and then it looks like it's floating over your shoulder. It was really effective. I had an old Renaissance clock pop up above my shoulder and spin around and surprised everybody in the meeting.
Which, by the way, is one of the coolest uses of Keynote that I've seen in a presentation as kind of a flex, where all of a sudden you use that luma key trick to make 2D objects or 3D objects appear, and if you frame it right, either behind you or in front of you as you're talking. And then if you're really flexing, you can go the Alex route and start drawing over it.
Well, yeah, and if
so organic.
If you look at the video that I did for that's on the immersive OHG-immersive, if you look at that one where I kind of show the immersive camera, what you'll see there is that's a Keynote. That's me, and all I did was hit record. So I just hit record and I started talking. I had an image. I was drawing over the image. I did plan a couple places where I want to annotate something. when I know I have an annotation coming up, I tend to do it. I tend to print it out in Keynote. I don't want to write. I don't want you to watch my handwriting. That's the big thing. So you shouldn't watch handwriting from Alex, because Alex hasn't done handwriting for so long. Like if I have to write like a paragraph, it hurts my hand. Like I feel like I'm gonna have to go and get some therapy. So my, that is not the way my hand works anymore. And so it's not good to watch my text. So anything I'm going to write, any words I'm going to write that are longer than maybe one word, I'm going to put in Keynote and have it, and just know I'm going to drop it in. Then I draw on top of it. Then I might say, have some kind of annotation. But by mixing those mediums, I think it creates a very interactive. It gets very close to the thing that I think about, whether it's this or using Broadboard, which is what we're showing here, is kind of recreating or supersizing the transparency experience that we had when we were growing up. Where you'd have little transparencies, you have things that go over top of it with text over top of this, over top of this. So I think about the layers that way, and then I think about drawing on top of it like we would do with a marker, and so it's just like that, except it's just a lot more powerful.
It's one of my favorite things is as more and more TV shows start to come out, and the 80s is nostalgia. They're gonna map out the plot for how they're gonna do the thing, and then they lay over a transparency and they draw over it, and then they layer another one. There was an organicness and an authenticness to how that was presented, and it had an immediacy to it that is just compelling. It's engaging, and ultimately, what we're getting after is that if we throw a bunch of text on the screen, we're almost guaranteed to lose people. The second it's a full screen slide that's not dynamic, that looks like it was copy and pasted out of a textbook, the audience is as good as gone. But using all of these things to keep it fresh and to keep it engaging, and to maybe show someone something that is not flash and trash, but actually has some novelty to it that makes them lean in, is what we're after, because ultimately this is a power tool for communication.
And it's really, you want to be thinking about cognitive load all the time. Like so like that there is, how much data can I give somebody before they start to get droopy eyed? And and you want to be, if you have the opportunity to be looking at the person over Zoom or in an audience, a lot of times as a presenter, I'm oftentimes paying attention to blink rate. So I'm looking at how slowly they're blinking. If it starts to slow down, people will think, people come up to me afterwards and they're like, your presentation's really good, but you have a really ADHD problem because you keep on changing the subject. I'm like, well, I'm not doing that I'm not doing that by accident. Like, it's not like I just thought of a squirrel. I created a squirrel because everyone was getting tired because I was too much data. Like, and I said, the next time I do the presentation, it won't look the same because I know where those things are. And I then iron them out, I can get rid of those so that it stays interesting. But one of the things that you can really nail, if you're talking to someone and then you give them a bunch of text all at the same time, it's a lot of cognitive load. Like, that is a huge, you're just inundating them, because now they're trying to read and listen to you at the same time. It's a horrible combination. Like, it's just a horrible, horrible combination. It puts people to sleep. And so the only people that seem to be impervious to that combination, because of years of training and muscle building and everything else, are educators, people work in the government, people work in science. Like, they seem to be able to manage that, and they seem to they do okay with it. And then they think that everyone else does because they're good at it, but it's just because they're superhuman in that area. In that they've built all these muscles because someone's overloaded their cognitive by adding all that text. But then they go to the outside world and they just drive everybody into the ground. And so you just have to understand that most of us just aren't that strong. We're just not that good.
And to be fair, most of our experience in that, up to when we graduate high school or college, our engagement with a Keynote or a PowerPoint style presentation is made by those people who are the superhumans who can, put all that text on the screen, and then we leave school thinking that that's the way that presentations have to be.
Yeah.
But most of us aren't presenting the superhuman.
I will argue every day of the week that Keynote skills are the most important skills. PowerPoint, if you're on PC, but your PowerPoint on PC, Keynote on the Mac, are the most important skills that you'll have in your career in many, 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 many places. like that is the skill. Like, and it amazes me that we have our, students writing lots of papers instead of doing lots of presentations, because It's really hard to do a presentation if you did it all with AI, because you still have to know it. Like, you have to know it on the fly. And B, when you leave college, you'll probably never write another paper unless you're going into academia, government, or science. You're never going to write another paper ever again. Like, you'll never write more than 3 or 4 pages. Like, I'm not saying nobody, but 90% of you will never do that again, because the entire corporate world runs on decks and demos. And that's that's how you move things down the path. And I have moved tens of millions of dollars with Keynote documents, and so it's just a really important skill to build up.
Yeah, I have to plus one that real quick. Like, that which I cannot explain, I do not understand. And it doesn't matter if I understand it if it doesn't look like I can explain it. So this is one of these self-fulfilling prophecies where it doesn't really matter what you know. It matters what you can show people in the amount of time, between start and when they fall asleep, or, when they lose interest.
Next question.
Kyle Hammond in Chicago, Illinois asks, what is your method of sharing Keynote within Zoom versus what are the typical methods people share Keynote presentations?
Go ahead, John.
The tools you use and how you use them totally depends on what your audience is doing and where you're presenting them. If you're in person, you can get away with more sophisticated animations, but if you're screen sharing in Zoom, Zoom will typically prioritize resolution over frame rate. So your animations and videos will look choppy. Zoom is different than Teams. And if you're in Microsoft Teams, you can present through PowerPoint Live, which actually enables better animations. But with video, you always want to use a video playout system. So you really need to understand the context you're working in, the tools you have, the strengths and weaknesses of each, because that should just change how you design your presentation. And then to add on what we were saying, I can't recommend this book, Made You Look, by Carmen Simon enough. It's about the science of attention and why you might want more complex instead of simple designs. When do you want an icon, or when do you want a obscure picture versus when do you want clip art? Because they can each be a tool in your toolbox. And in this book, they actually study eye movement, EKG, ECG of people actually viewing presentations in person and online to help you understand when you want to use which tools.
Alex?
Yeah, a couple things. One is that typically I am, and I'm not quite set up to do this as heavy because I didn't think about this before we did it, of that I might want to show the whole stack in action. But typically what happens is I'm on a Mac Studio that is connected to Zoom. I have essentially I have 5, but really 4 active Mac Minis, and each one of them has their own role in what's actually happening here. So I have what do I call it? So one of the Mac Minis is my Keynote, is my presentation. So that the presentation lives there, and I can key it over myself. Now all of these run into an A10 Mini Extreme. So I've got 8 channels coming in. I've got a KVM so I can jump to them if I need to, but I also have Stream Decks connected to most of them. If they're just simple operations, the Stream Decks are all tied into them, so I can frame forward and do a bunch of other things with that Keynote without having to change my keyboard around. So I have, if you think about it, I have my video layer, I have my video layer here. And then on top of that, I have the presentation layer. And on top of that, I have as another layer, I have an app layer. So that might be the app that I'm talking about. It could be a web page. It could be something else. So that's another layer of information that I have. And then on top of all of those, I have my telestrator. So what that means is that I don't have to, I can cut to me. I can do a picture-in-picture if I want to. So I don't use any of the live, there's another question coming up, but I don't use the live video in Keynote because there's a lot of times there's sync issues with it. If I put my live into something else, I'm going to be out of sync typically. So I'll typically use the switcher. I then can cut back and forth between me and the Keynote. Sometimes I have transparent things, as I said, like I'll cut back and forth, and sometimes there'll be things that'll pop in front of me. Sometimes I'm in a box. Sometimes I'm not there at all. It just depends on the design of the slide of what I'm doing there. But I'm also able to cut to full screen and cut back to the Keynote anytime I want. And then the app computer allows me to cut to something else and then cut back to the Keynote. So I don't have to go, okay, now I'm going to jump out of my presentation and I'm going to go into this app, or I'm going to show you something. I can just show you this little thing, then come back to my presentation, and all it is a keystroke for me to jump back in, or I can go full screen to me. And on top of all of the things that I'm showing you, I can circle things. So I can sit there and annotate things and talk about things and outline them. And if you do, I mean, if your business is doing presentations so that you get work, this is not a big investment. If you're just doing basic stuff that is just helping people, it's a big investment. You don't do it for fun. But having this all set up and having all those things in front of me allows me to very quickly do presentations that people may not notice what I'm doing, but most of them have not ever seen anything like it. Like it's not something that they're used to seeing, and they won't, when they see the next presentation after one that I've built all that stuff out for, it definitely looks like it dropped a couple levels down, because they're just not used to seeing that much interaction going on. But because we come from broadcast, we just want to look as close to broadcast as possible. What I will say also is that if I don't know what kind of, if I want to make sure that there's a one of the reasons that my presentations are so basic is because they're all planned to run at 640 by 480. So I assume that, if I'm going to go into a presentation, you can read everything that I'm putting there at 640 by 480. They look better and cleaner and cooler when they're higher resolution, but I tend not to build resolution higher than that because I don't know what Zoom I'm joining or what, or what I'm joining with, Teams is not a very high, not as high, it's not 1080p. I mean, it's 1080p if you do one person, and then after that, it's gone. So I also attempt to set up most meetings myself because I know that I have a 1080p account in Zoom. Everything's going to look a lot better. If I don't know that's going to happen, the way I get around the resolution issue is that I will open my switcher in QuickTime, and then I will share QuickTime screen share QuickTime. And so what happens is that it's sitting, now I'm getting the full resolution of that 1080p in the screen share, which I know that sounds a little convoluted, but it means that I have all my video and I have all my layers and I have everything else, and because what happened before is otherwise I would just share my Keynote and then I'm stuck without any of the tools that I'm used to having. So those are some of the approaches that I have around doing the keynotes.
And getting a lot of practice and getting well rehearsed on using that system and making it feel fluid is another thing that, like Alex meant, it takes all those little hitches out of that presentation and makes it just.
Before I do that presentation before I do a presentation for someone when it matters. I mean, I do a lot of presentations that are just kind of like illustrative, or we're talking about something. But if I'm doing a sales presentation, or if I'm doing a training for a class or something like that, I will have done that presentation 30 or 40 times. And the last 5, I didn't make any edits. So if I make an edit, I'll do it another 5 times to make sure that I'm happy with it. And that means and I'm very tweaky about how fast things roll out and how they stop and when they go and what order they're in and how they, and there's a lot of and how the balance of the slide while they're coming out. Do I want you to feel unbalanced? Do I want you to feel balanced? I want it, all of those things are things that I'm thinking about and I'm tweaking. And once I've done it 5 times without changing anything, I'm ready to, but usually I've done it again 30 or 40 times before you've seen it. In that process. And then I guess one thing I want to say about this, maybe someone will ask this, but I'll just say that there is a process to building the slide deck that I think a lot of people get lost in. And that is, I make an outline in notes. These are the things I want to talk about. And I do this because it's really easy when you open a presentation, whether it's PowerPoint or Keynote or whatever, or Google Slides or whatever, is to get caught up in what you're doing with slide 1 and losing the thread. And so I make the notes, and this is what I want to say in notes. And then I open up Keynote, and I just sketch, on an iPad. I sketch every slide, and then I go back and start building slides, and I build them skeletal, run through them, and then start adding detail. But if you start in Keynote with a fully fledged slide, each slide at a time, you'll lose your story. And man, that's a really common problem.
They've even built an outline view into Keynote now, where if you wanted to be in Keynote, and if you can resist the urge to start playing around, it'll lay out the slides as you're making headings and subheadings. One more note for atomizing your presentation and demo computer from your actual Zoom computer is that if the computer needs to restart because there was a demo fail, your call continues. No one needs to know.
Yeah.
Next question.
Next up is Jason Robertshaw in Sarasota, Florida. Pros and cons of using live video in a Keynote slide.
Jason.
The pro is it's extremely easy. The con is that compared to a switcher, it's cumbersome, and the sync will drive you nuts if you pay even a little bit of attention to it.
Alex?
Sync's the big one. The pro is it looks really cool. You can animate it in. You can do it's part of your presentation. Sync is the problem, and so if and that's what you have to kind of adjust for.
John?
Yeah, and live video works a little bit better if you're recording the presentation in Keynote, because then you don't have to worry about those sync issues. Almost never do it virtually if you can help it.
If you're using a Zoom screen share functionality or some other screen share functionality, and you are, instead of doing the live Keynote feature in Keynote, you do it as part of presenter view, and you want to overlay video of yourself, if Zoom is taking care of doing the overlaying, you're not going to have those sync issues. So there is a way to do it that avoids that if you don't have a switcher. So, but as with all these tools, get really good at it and make sure that there's no hitches, because if it causes your presentation to pause, you're going to lose your audience. Next question.
This one's from Brett Belo in Appleton, Wisconsin. Have you encountered any performance limits with Keynote? File size, slide count, animation complexity, or video embeds?
Jason?
It's been a long time, believe it or not. And just to give you a sense of this, this is one last demo that I have, and this is USDZ for floor plans. And in essence, this is Magic Plan and the office that I wanted to deploy a network into. And if you take the SVG, put it on top of a normal blueprint, and then bring that into Ubiquity's, what's it called, Inner Sense or Interscape, or their design thing, you can place precisely where you want the cameras and the Wi-Fi to be. You can draw the walls, you can set the height, and it will interactively, in 3D, show you, according to where you place any of your stuff, what your camera views will look like, and what your and what your Wi-Fi layout will be. And I have found it to be shockingly accurate. So the lie is you can do this on a 20-year-old Mac. The truth is, if you've got Apple Silicon, play around a lot, because good luck really hurting it.
Alex?
Yeah, I haven't had anything where where Keynote couldn't play it back. So I think 4K files that sometimes, depending on the computer, might not play it back. It mostly comes down to sharing it with somebody and having a 1.3 gig, Keynote file. But the challenge for me, and you have to be kind of, I've learned to be conscious of this, is that when I put in images, I don't want them to be pixelated ever. Like, I don't want to see any pixelation. So I always am looking for images on the web, or whether I'm getting them or downloading them or buying them or whatever I'm doing, or using AI. I always want them to be a bigger resolution than the slide, even if they're small. I don't know what I'm going to do with them later. I might want to zoom them up. I might want to be, so typically 1920 by 1080 is the minimum size for what I'm doing. And that means that if I build I have a slide that has 12 very large files in it, I don't tend to optimize for those. That tends to make them big. It works just fine, but that's the challenge, is transporting it around or giving it to somebody else is more of a challenge. The one thing I will say also related to that is that I do save all my keynotes into my iCloud, into my Keynote folder in iCloud. It saves me so many times. Like, I don't have the same computer, or I need to do something else, or whatever. Being able to just go up and pull it down is important.
The only real hitch is that I've seen is if you have a presentation that it has a lot of video or a lot of heavy animation in it, it sometimes will be a little sluggish to start the presentation. But once it's going, yeah,
you saw it wants to load that whole thing up. Yeah.
And the only hitch that I've found, and I'm given my provide feedback for this, is I had a magic move with a very large image where the image stayed consistent, but the shape of the mask changed from slide to slide, and I can't, no matter what, when I go from this to this, I get a little hitch when I go to this piece here. When it does that little scale up, it kind of like is chunky, and I've
Right.
troubleshot the heck out of it. But Keynote menu, provide Keynote feedback. Next question.
Brett Dykus in New York City asks, what are the panel's thoughts on best practice for saving a Keynote file as a single file or as a package?
Jason.
Okay, this is kind of distinction without a difference these days. It really should only be one file, and it should contain absolutely everything that you need.
Alex.
So all I want to say is Brett, thank you. I didn't know that a package existed. So if you wonder what my opinion is, I don't know other than I've never had one. It's hidden, not hidden, but it's in here. If we go over here in file down to advanced, you can change the file type to package, and there it is to save it out. I have never done that. I can see reasons to do that, to be able to easily. One of the problems that I've had is not being able to extract all the images that I had in a Keynote. I don't think I would work that way. I think I would agree with Jason that I want to keep it as a single file, but I can imagine that as I go to archive that, I would save a second version of it that I would call package, change its file and save it out, because that means that I have a folder that has all of the assets in their own components. So I could see saving it out for archive that way. I think that would make a lot of sense. And I'm really glad you brought it up, because you just asked me something I didn't know anything about. The only reason I know is because I sat here while Jason was talking madly, asking ChatGPT where the package was and how do I save that out in thing, because I was like, I've never heard of a package before coming out of Keynote. So, but now I know how to do it. And thanks, Brett, for asking.
And the key difference there is it's still going to save as a .key file, but if you right click on it and it's a package type, then you can hit show package contents and actually dig in there and get at all the stuff. In practice, we'll have to play with that one to see if it impacts performance at all. But nice to know that you can atomize that. Next question.
Here's James Foslian in Minneapolis, Minnesota asking, any tips to use to illustrate signal flow?
Jason.
Yes, less is more. Do not animate every little bit of GAC, because no matter what you think your clients are going to see, I'm going to remind you that this is the vast majority of camera moves for all your clients. They are pans. They're all pans. They're pans up, they're pans down, they're pans sideways. You might want to teach them this, but at the end of the day, it's just all a pan. Less is more. They don't really care about it other than the abstraction and the neat pieces.
Alex?
So to kind of go the other way, so I am gonna show you how to do that. So what I can do here is I can grab these two things, let's just say I want to have these two connect this, connect like this. Now I may want to make them straight. I may want to make them, and I can pull them in. And what's kind of cool here is if I grab onto these and I move them around, they're connected to each other. You can connect two objects that way. I can make these, I can take these and go into my format, and I can make them bigger. I can give them arrows like this. Now, one of the cool things in Animate is that you can go into action, and you can add an effect here, and
What might be a built-in?
Build-in, and I can say draw a line, and it will hold on to that arrow. So if you do one of these connections, it will actually, when you do line draw here, it keeps the arrow in the front of that line as it draws it. So if you do want to, I agree with Jason that you don't want to do a lot of that. You don't want the whole thing to be drawn. But if you're trying to say this connects to this and this connects to this, and it's a simple one.
100% agree.
Yeah.
John?
You can also, if that doesn't give you exactly what you want, lay an object over the top of it and have the object on top fade from left to right to reveal something.
And if you are wondering why your Keynote doesn't have that awesome connect button like Alex's does, remember that you can, on the Mac, you can right click on your toolbar and hit customize toolbar, and then you get all of these fun buttons that you can arrange to your heart's content. And sometimes it's fun just to look at these to try and see what's possible.
And then
Next
you can put
question.
them in a Stream Deck and forget about them entirely.
Next question.
Here we have Dave Kaufman in Vancouver, BC, asking, in Alex's demo, it looked like he could free rotate the camera, but at certain angles, the arrows appeared to annotate the model. How do you make sure the arrows appear when the thing you want to show is visible?
Can you tell us a little more, John?
Yeah, I would make it into 2 separate slides and use a magic move between them, and then have the arrows pointing exactly where you want on each slide, and let the magic move animate them the way that you need to animate.
Oh, Alex?
Yeah, and the trick to the one that I did was even simpler. It is that the annotations are happening on each slide, but they're not happening. It rotates into place, and then those annotations occur afterwards. So if we look at it here, if you zoom in here, and that's happening over top of the 3D model, it rotates, stops, and then these happen, after that. So all of they're not happening at the same time. And I could have them at the same. I mean, I couldn't. So I get it to where I want it to go, and then you'll see me add these things. So when it's moving quickly, you don't notice it, but they're never happening at the same time. And all I'm doing there to make that possible is if we go into my, if we go into here and go to animate, you're looking at the build order. So you'll see the build orders here. And in this case, they're all tied together with some delays here. Build order, by the way, we could probably do a whole hour on build order. But build order is it's ninja. It's like there you'll see these, and they're done in different ways. Like this one, I have the line drawn with the 180 and with the name, but they're separated. So I'm going to click between each one of those. But when I click on them, they're going to do both things at the same time. And so those are things that you can but build order becomes something like once you've figured out what all the slides look like and where they all go, the next thing you're going to go back to do is kind of work through all these build orders to make it work.
And what we did in that earlier demo is I had 4 separate builds that drew each of these lines, and then the line draw text and the subtext each came in with a 0.1 second delay, so that when I actually went into my slide, my builds 1 comes up, and all 3 things kind of pop in on a slight kind of cascading delay. And that's one of those things that really gives a little bit of polish to what you're doing. Next question.
Roz McNulty comes in from Vancouver, Canada. Alex, tell us a bit more about putting 3D or USDZ files into a presentation. Any details in terms of specs?
Alex?
I think we covered a lot of those, before. This was asked really right at the top of the show. The main thing is that if it doesn't come in well formed, as CJ said, you run it through Converter, and Converter will oftentimes clean it up. The other thing that I'll do is a lot of times if it doesn't come in cleanly, a lot of services let you download OBJ and USDZ, and I'll go back and I'll export OBJ and then bring it into again Reality Converter, and then bring it back in. So running it through that tends to fix a lot of things. Doesn't fix everything, but it fixes a lot of things to make those work. As far as the specs, the file that I'm throwing there is 150 meg. I think it's got 2 million polygons. The game there with that camera was spare no expense. We're not saying, oh, we can't, do whatever. We want to be able to, how good can we make it look? And I think that's the thing that I feel like people haven't seen is something as detailed as that camera. And that was one of the reasons we wanted to do it, is say, hey, this is a thing that would be really hard to render some other way. And we're able to do it in real time in Keynote.
John?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out PowerPoint cannot do USDZ. It can do other 3D object formats, but it does have a better animation pane than Keynote does. Alex, how could you take a USDZ and convert it easily into other graphics formats is a question I have.
There's not really a strong way to do that other than to take it into something like Blender. Blender will open the USDZ. Maya will open the USDZ. I think Maya will open USDZ. There's a lot of times when you talk to folks, they'll say USD or USDZ. USD is the industry standard universal scene description, and it has lighting and animation and everything else. Apple added a Z to it, zipped it, so that it all packages well and moves nicely, and that's why USDZ is so cool. But it means that a lot of apps can't open it. So it's not as backwards compatible with other apps unless they've been built to open USDZ. But a lot of apps can, but it's not all of them. So you have to kind of go to one of the major apps to open the USDZ files. And some apps can save USDZ, but not open them. And if only there was someone at Apple that was paying attention to these things.
Next question.
Matthew LeCount in Oakland is asking, how would you create USDZ from a DXF or DWG CAD file?
Alex?
The easiest way to do that is to find some intermediary. So what you want to do is open the DXF in an app that will save USDZ, or open something that will open DXF and OBJ, which is almost everything. Anything that opens DXF will generally open a OBJ, or open and close and save OBJs. Those are old formats. DXF is older. OBJ is not as close. So these are ancient formats that are generally supported by almost everything. Open it in DXF, save it out as OBJ, then move it through into converter, into reality converter, and Bob's your uncle.
And I've actually had even success with something as bare bones as SketchUp, be able to export an OBJ or something like that. I can then take in, and it's been remarkably easy to nurse that through. Reality converter is kind of it's kind of magic. There's not a lot of knobs to turn, but it does the thing, and it does it well. Next question.
Here's one from Ryan Rademan in Chicago, Illinois. What separates presentations by Duarte from everyone else?
John?
Attention to detail. If it's important, take the time to do it right. Take the time to rehearse. And you can even use tools like ChatGPT to create personas that will evaluate your slide design using Duarte frameworks. And that's one thing that I've built as a custom GPT, that I take images of my PowerPoint decks and I throw it in there and it gives me feedback.
Alex?
Yeah, I did a presentation a long time ago where Duarte was the support team for it. And I probably worked harder on that. I've told this story before, but I worked harder on that presentation than I worked on any other presentation. And I just was very proud of it. I had done a lot of good work on it. And when they got it, they were like, wow, this is great. This is really well done. Really good job here. I mean, we don't usually get slide decks like this. And I was like, yeah, I know. And inside, not outside. Anyway, but and they said, can we make a couple edits for it? And I was like, sure. And then they just tore my whole presentation apart and put it back together. Then it was the best presentation I've ever had. And watching them do that was transformational for me. And it drove all of my design afterwards. A couple things that I learned. Number one is they used a lot of images. They had a full subscription to Getty. So they didn't have to, like, whatever they're paying, they just pay and they can grab whatever they want. So there's an assistant sitting next to the guy. And they did this all in like 30 minutes. Assistant sitting next to the guy, and he just, I need a picture of this. I need a picture of that. I need a picture of this. I need a picture of that. And they just kind of put it together. The other thing I learned was all the stuff that you see when I showed you, like I'd barely use any text. That's one of the things. I had lots of things that had chunks of text and things, and they just got rid of all of that, and just got it down to the nub. And the thing is that if you're going to say it, you don't put it in the slide. The slide is there to support what you're talking about, not be what you're talking about. And that was one of the things that I left with that I just never forgot, was this idea that the slide is there to support it. The thing is if you're making a list, you don't need to list all the things that you're talking about. You just need to say, you need to put up, I'm going to talk about, it gives structure to someone's mind to give them the 4 things that you're talking about. But the paragraph that comes after that, you don't need to put up, and I have learned to build 2 different decks. I have a deck that I print that's white. So it's a white background, so it doesn't take up all the ink in the world. And it doesn't come out, wet. Like if you've ever had a color deck, you know what that feels like. So it's white. It has all the text. It's the same slides. Sometimes it has more slides because if there was a build or something like that. But it's basically the same order, and there's lots of text, and it's designed as a walk away. Like this is the PDF that you can read, and you'll kind of get what I said. But my presentation deck is never that. My presentation deck is generally on dark, on a dark background, because white is really hard to look at on a projector. And it also makes, if you don't have an LED wall, white will look dingy, on a projection. So you never want to do white if you don't have to. But I've learned to kind of do those two different things as I work through it. So those are, but keeping it simple, only showing what you're talking about at that moment. And then all the things that John talked about is snapping everything together, making sure everything's the same distance. And those little things give this feel of being finished. When someone has your objects being a little off is not something people notice or complain about, but they feel it. It just doesn't feel finished. It's like you walk into a room and all the chairs aren't quite lined up. It's not like you're going to complain about it or want your money back, but it feels a little disheveled. And so you really want to keep that clean.
Jason?
Oh, one last thing.
Oh.
No serif fonts. Just say no. No serif fonts.
Jason.
Yeah, if you need serifs, then whatever you're putting in text is way too small. Walt Disney said this best. People can feel perfection. They can't describe it. They don't need to describe it, but they can feel it. And that uniformity is just really the way to go.
And if you don't have an assistant or a carte blanche subscription to Getty Images, remember that the AI image generation tools, this is where they're your friend. If you need a very bespoke image for just your presentation that's going to hit for just the point you're trying to make or just the audience that you're trying to serve, you can come up with some really fun stuff.
I use Midjourney so much. My favorite thing is over a plain white background with 20% padding. That keeps the edges, it keeps it around the edges, keeps it in the center. It's easy to key out later. And by the way, Keynote has a pretty good can key out color really well by itself. Photoshop's is better. So much better. So if you want to build alpha channels, take it into Photoshop and say, remove background, and it'll just knock it out, and it gets all the little details and everything else. It does a better job. Keynote does a good job. Photoshop does a better job.
Because sometimes you're giving a presentation to a group that is doing a company retreat at an indoor water park, and nothing breaks up that presentation and brings a laugh like Minions at the water park. I mean,
yes.
It's just home run every time. Thank you so much, everyone. This was so great to get to just geek out about Keynote for a little over an hour. I know that we could have probably gone until we were unable to stay awake anymore.
We have mercy on our production team of not running this into the middle of the night for some of them.
Just the surface.
Yeah.
Yes, but thank you so much to Alex, Jason, John, Cindy for being our reader tonight. Thank you to our back end crew. We got Peter, Alan, Laura, Robert, Jeff for supporting this evening show. We really love this chance to get to spend a little more time on something when we want to focus on it and really just get to geek out for an hour. Also, thank you to all the producers for asking questions and helping drive the conversation tonight. We will see you tomorrow morning for Audio Day. Can't wait for that. And if you would have had to go around the world today to ask all these questions, that would have been the Tlaloc Traversal. And for this evening, it's 24,000 miles, 39,000 kilometers, and that's 190 million bananas for scale. All right, we'll see you in after hours. Good night, everybody.